Let's kick this big. We're here with Jared Halbert.
And I just want to first off say thank you to everybody for tuning in to this podcast and supporting us here for the Life Competitor podcast. I'm Kevin Sipes, 17 years military experience, senior enlisted NCO out at the United States Army Sniper Course and Marksmanship Master Training Course currently. Just interested in improving the mind and other people through the marketplace of ideas. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of different people through competition and searching for self-improvement. And we're here with Jared Halbert. I've competed with him in the tactical games. He's got a pretty awesome announcement for everybody, and we're going to talk about the tactical games and the future of it with him. I want to say thanks to sponsors, A-TACS, A-TACS Raider and Next Camo for supporting me here with the podcast and all the technological background. The Misfit Society, clothing and apparel out of England. Phenomenal folks out there. If you get a chance, check them out online. Get yourself some T-shirts and gear that they sell out there. Gods of Iron Pro Gym out here in Columbus, Georgia. Adam and Sheila, phenomenal folks. Look them up on Instagram at Gods of Iron Pro Gym. If you're interested in bodybuilding or weightlifting competitively, they got phenomenal advice, nutrition advice, and they've got some phenomenal athletes that you can go follow as well. And then Burly Man Tactical, hooking people up with your holster gear needs. Kydex, if you're making holsters for yourself, they've got some phenomenal products, designs. And they've partnered up recently with JP Cervantes out of New Stepion's group. They got T-shirts for sale, and 100% of those proceeds are going towards rescuing kids that are being held against their will and forced to do some unspeakable things. So all that money is going to help rescue those kids over time and search for and find them. So, man of the hour, Jared Halbert here with us.
Sir.
First off, just want to get with you and who is Jared?
I've run a couple small businesses. Like you said, you and I met probably about a year ago now in the tactical games, competing in the tactical games. Really, I'm just a dad, small business owner. I like competing, pushing myself, finding ways to go out and make myself uncomfortable, finding new ways to do that. So that's it in a couple of sentences, I guess.
I don't know. So when did you start competing in life, at sports or in school or later in life, or where did that come from, or who influenced that, and how did you begin competing?
I competed. I mean, I've been playing sports since I was 4 or 5. My dad definitely pushed me on the competitive side of things. I wouldn't say he didn't push me much, but he allowed that avenue to begin. I then went on. I played baseball mainly up through middle school, and then I started playing golf in 7th grade. I like the individual aspect. I was responsible for everything. There's no hiding on a team in golf. You are responsible for, if you're not putting in the work, it shows immediately. You can't just kind of sit back and rely on your team members to get you through things if you've not been putting out for a couple of months. So anyway, I played golf through high school. I got a scholarship to play in college. I played through my sophomore year in college, and I got burned out. Golf's a 365-day a year sport, 4 to 6 hours a day. I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and there was really no reason other than free school to keep going. Which free school is definitely a choice, but at that point, it was just I could go get a job and focus on school. Whereas before, golf was a full time and some, 7 day a week. I wasn't really able to focus on school like I should. But golf taught me how to be a competitor for sure. It's kind of funny in the shooting sports. There are a lot of really good shooters that come out of golf. It's just I don't know that there is another game out there that is as mentally challenging as golf can be. Everything can be going your way, and you hit a ball with a club face 1 degree open, and you watch 7 years of work fly out of bounds, and you're out of it. And that's 4 or 5 day competition, and one swing can ruin it all. Which that kind of lends to, being successful at the tactical games, which is, everybody focuses on shooting and the physical aspects, but if you ask the guys that are finishing at the top, winning or at the top every time, it's 97% of it's mental. Maybe 1.5% is your shooting ability, and the other is physical. But if you've got it together in your mind, that's what's going to get you through and get you doing well. So that's basically where I learned to be competitive. Nobody likes to lose, man. So that's where I guess running from failure and chasing success has always been my thing, my driver.
That's a pretty good way to put it. Running from failure, chasing success. And at least you got a positive that you're chasing and leaving the negative behind. It's a couple key points in there that I heard. I want to kind of expand on that mental capacity. How do you feel about team sports and events? And because it sounds like you prefer that individual competitiveness, but what do you feel about that teamwork and working with other people to gain individual success, essentially? What don't you like about it, and how do you think it helps?
So through high school and college, golf is a team sport. So it's actually, you're doing both in parallel. You're on a team, but your individual results matter. So you are always held accountable by the people there. However, you are also able to advance as an individual if the team didn't make it. Having other people there to hold you accountable. Nobody, you can watch podcasts and YouTube and these people that famously post pictures of watches at 4:30. Those guys, nobody can be motivated on their own every day. So being surrounded by teammates that are going to hold you accountable if you're not there, practicing, being held accountable for the way you're competing. It's one thing to win. It's another thing to win gracefully, type thing. You're a product of who you surround yourself by. So even if it is an individual score that you're turning in, that's usually a product of the people that have surrounded you and given you opportunity, given you advice, information, taught you how to do things. So there's definitely, even within the tactical games, there's smaller groups of guys that are holding each other accountable, sharing training information, stuff like that. If that answers your question.
No, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's a big thing with like this life competitor thing that I'm trying to look at within the veteran community, or even just active duty guys. I can speak from myself, like being I say like a broken individual, but a person who's facing challenges every day. And that's why it's important to me to not just talk to military guys or anything like that. Like meeting people like you see those challenges in life and how people react to them. And that's one big point, whether it's dealing with depression or addiction or those kinds of things, people want to look for the symptom and like blame it on X, Y, or Z and not take ownership of themselves and how they're contributing to those things. And then who they're surrounding themselves with. I saw an awesome YouTube video on addiction. It was a TED Talk. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head right now, but it was a TED Talk about addiction, and this guy did extensive research over a period of time and in multiple different countries because he had people in his family that were struggling with it. And he pointed to the fact that it's more about who you surround yourself with and like what's in your circle, in your cage. I've talked a lot in the past, whether it's through Instagram or whatever, about who you surround yourself with or how you're fueling your fire. I always look at people who have like an inner fire, whether it's raging out of control because you're fueling it with bad firewood, or it's just almost dimmed out and smothered from negative feelings or emotions that you're applying to yourself. So being able to resource your own firewood is kind of what I want to get after with this through other people and how they do it. Because I think a lot of times we're always reaching for and trying to pull stuff from other people, but we don't know how to resource it within ourselves. So that's a big deal there. Who you're surrounded by, I think, is incredibly important, and it's an awesome point that you made. So talking about getting into small business and creating something for yourself, what were they, number one, and how'd you find your niche or what you were interested in? Was that through?
So in college, as soon as I stopped playing golf, obviously I had to get a job. I started working for a landscape and irrigation company my sophomore year, or after my sophomore year. So through that, I learned the trade, mainly the landscaping, site work, and irrigation side of it. Then I started running a crew about 2 or 3 months after I got the job. Basically in that industry, and the part of the country that I was in, if you had a valid driver's license and you could pass the drug test, you were going to be a crew leader pretty quick. So in Abilene, it's super hot. Abilene, Texas, started doing that and then realized the value of education. I had known my entire life it was super important to get educated, but there's nothing like a driver of heat and digging holes in a pick and digging holes in rock with a pick. So I graduated, transferred to OU, graduated from OU, and started. I went out looking for a job. I had a degree in psychology, and it was 2008 or 2009 then, which the economy was horrible. Nobody was hiring. So came home and did what I know how to do, which was repairing irrigation systems. The number one thing was answering my phone. When people would call, I answered my phone. And then I started doing small repairs. Through that, I'd met some landscape and maintenance companies, and they wanted me to start doing irrigation installs for them. So I got my irrigation license to install, and over the next probably 4 or 5 years, it became, I hired my first crew leader, then I had another crew, then 3 crews, then 8 crews, and just running a successful business isn't very hard if you answer your phone. And that's mainly, I think it sounds so simple, but that's what's lost on most people that are trying to start businesses, is being responsive. You can make a lot of mistakes if you answer your phone every time the customer calls. So really my motivation was, I had a wife and kids to take care of, and being a bump on a log is not an option. So I had to make stuff happen, and really, graduating in a terrible economy was probably the best thing that happened to me, because it forced me into doing things that were uncomfortable, which starting a business when you're 21 is not a comfortable thing to do. You're always the youngest guy in the room. So
I can definitely relate to that in different ways, depending on performance and how you do. A lot of times you'll be in a leadership role, which kind of want to talk about that a little bit, where you're leading as a young guy, and a lot of times there's people that are older than you that may have been doing it longer but didn't apply the same work ethic or same type of intelligence or different things, and they become disgruntled or things like that. Developing leadership challenges within that. How did you feel about that? Like leading or managing crews at 21 and like not having that experience, but making those mistakes and gaining or that learned experience over time.
It's kind of, I would put it in the same category as the qualifying yourself in the shooting sports is something to where if somebody's going to listen to you and what you're talking about, it's because you're successful at what you're doing. I've made it a point in all the businesses that I've owned at being expert at what I was doing. So there was no point when I owned the irrigation company or an ammo company or my septic system company where an employee knew how to do something that I didn't know how to do. When I was starting out doing irrigation repairs, I made myself an expert at irrigation repairs. So I may have, at that time I was 21, 22, and I may have hired a 40-year-old technician that had been doing it for 20 years. However, when they ran into a repair, like an electrical problem with a repair, they call you and say you don't know what's going on, and you show up and figure it out 5 or 10 minutes. That it's earned respect. At a certain point, the attitude of well, you're my junior, you're younger, you're that goes away with knowledge and expertise. So when they start coming to you for help, with advice and problems that they don't know how to solve, it seems like that stuff goes away.
Did you ever feel so when that was happening? Did you push people to try and figure stuff out, or were you always the guy that was coming and answering the problem and getting relied on to fix it, and almost putting them into a realm where they weren't self-developing? Or how did you balance that?
So probably the reason why I was able to scale the business as quick as I did is I tried to turn everything into a teaching moment, right? Especially mistakes that they had made. Usually I found that the best employees that you have made a huge mistake within the first month of employment. A lot of times people will give up on somebody because they cost them a couple $1,000s on a mistake. But for some reason, it seems like the best employees always made a huge mistake in the first month. If you turn it into a teaching problem, say, hey, look, this isn't ideal. What just happened isn't ideal. We lost a lot of money. However, let's learn from this. There's no reason to, let's say it costs you $2,000. Well, let's turn it into a $2,000 education on how to do this again.
Yeah.
So the main way I found to scale a company quickly was to teach your employees how to be self-sufficient. If you call me with a problem, I will help you with the problem. But I don't want you to call me with that same problem next week. Because if you're not developing self-reliant employees, then there's no way to continue to scale. At some point, there's too many phone calls coming into you asking you what to do, how to solve problems, if you don't have people out there solving problems for themselves. So teaching people how to do things is definitely, one of the best ways to scale a company. It prevents having, fleets of managers to handle a small amount of employees. At one time we had 50 to 60, maybe around 70 employees out in the field. We had 2 managers. If 70 people are calling you a couple of times an hour with, hey, I don't know how to enter this into the bill. I don't know how to do, I don't know how to make this repair. I don't know how to, we've run into this issue. It would be impossible to run the company. So taking the time to educate employees definitely paid dividends, if that answers the question.
No, yeah, because that ties into like on the military side, on like the leadership aspect of stuff, and I'm really interested in like tying all this stuff together because you get when I first came into the military, it was a lot of do as I say, don't ask questions, just follow. And if you mess stuff up, fairly demeaning situation, you're kind of, oh, you're an idiot, shitbag, dummy, whatever the case. And I think a lot of times that just has to do with the emotional maturity and being able to handle situations and stress or manage people. And the Army's gotten a lot better at how we train and develop leaders. But, I want that message to come across to people. And you put it very well about how to do that. Because like in the military, what's that?
So I came down to spend a day with you and your guys, and one thing that I did notice was the amount of respect that your guys had for you. So maybe, how'd you earn that respect from them? Turn it around a little bit.
So I had phenomenal leaders starting out, and there were the toxic guys that would do things like that, like you're dumb because you don't know this. I always talk about the difference between ignorance and stupidity. So it's okay to be ignorant about a situation that you just don't know. Being stupid is completely different because you're just either choosing not to or ignoring the fact that something needs to be done a certain way. So how you communicate with people to get results is incredibly important to me. Explaining things, managing expectations, that's like massive. And what do I want? And then communicating that to them. This is what I want. And I've made massive mistakes over time. It's just learned. People talk about, like, you got 5 principles of patrolling in the combat arms realm. And the 5th one's common sense. People always say common sense all the time. And then you hear, common sense is never common. To me, there is no such thing as common sense. It's just learned experience. You gain the common sense within a thing because you've experienced it and probably screwed it up, or you figured out how to do it better over time. And so I try to communicate I don't want to get my heart rate up for anything unless somebody's hurt, or, and I'm reacting to that situation, or I'm in a stressful situation I have to manage. So I'm not running around yelling, screaming. It doesn't get results. I want to communicate with you as a human being just like this, and we can have that conversation. I'm going to let you know I'm disappointed. There's a difference between disappointment and anger and putting somebody down. So I think that's probably the biggest part of that I have seen in my personal experience is communication with people and being transparent and managing expectations, paying attention to them, knowing what they're capable of, and then, hey, think about this. I don't want to give you the answer. I want to give you the the issue and see how you solve it, and then talk about that.
The managing expectations is I think kind of talking about the tactical games, talking about just pretty much everything in life. Through match director and stuff with the tactical games, and through owning businesses, through all that, I think managing expectations is a huge. It can determine the way you go about things in the future. I think that specifically with tactical games, people will come into the competition with, well, this is what I've done in my life, so I'm obviously going to come win this, right? Whether it be from the competitive shooters coming in, from the guys in the military coming in, law enforcement coming in, or just a guy that lifts weights and shoots guns. So I think from that, and then also in business, managing expectations, and in life, managing expectations. If you show up expecting to crush something, when that doesn't happen, or if that doesn't happen, it's a huge letdown. So there's two options when that letdown happens. You can either say, I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. I wasn't the person I thought I was. Or you can say, that was too hard. Or I'm not a professional shooter, so I can't succeed. Or, there's two ways, and you can pick the toxic route, which is blaming things that are external, or you can pick the self-improvement route, which is, I wasn't good enough.
No, it's
I'm gonna grab a notepad. I'm gonna write down everything I sucked at today, and I'm gonna make myself better. And then in a year, I'm gonna come back, and now I can have a metric on where I was, where I got, and the things that I learned how to get there. And I think with business, it more so applies in, oh yeah, I'm gonna start a business, and in a year, I'm gonna be a millionaire. No, you need to expect to grind for make almost nothing, and anything that is better than that is a win.
No.
So now you've created a win instead of a fail. If you expect to make $1 million and you don't, you failed. If you expect to grind and find a moderate amount of success, anything above that is a win.
It's really interesting, and that's why I think competition is incredibly important, because you can train at anything without stress, without any kind of outside influence on you, and be really good at something. I remember coming into the tactical games, it was introduced to me like, hey, you might like this. I've done other competitions, the Best Ranger competition, or other things that were incredibly stressful, both physically and mentally. And so I was like, man, this should be a walk in the park, and you get that kind of false sense of security of, what the uniform does for you, or whatever the case, or how much experience you may have in something. Which for me, in shooting specifically, is a very long time with a lot of different courses. The Army spent a ton of money on me with shooting, and then teaching me how to teach other people how to do it. And so I walked in there like, this shouldn't be too bad. And immediately, when I was talking to John, I was mentally preparing myself for the event. Like, I critique everything about it and try to, okay, well, I'm going to push here, or this is how I might want to do this, and probably almost to a fault in a way, because there's guys like you, guys like John, it's full send out the gate in a way. Probably, maybe not to you, internally, but the outside perception is that's where it's at, and probably due to the way that you train and where you are, which that's kind of what I gleaned from those experiences was, I need to step up this and that, and I could, Jared's shooting an STI, and he's sponsored by Vortex, and he's got this awesome trigger on his gun so he can shoot faster, and it's all BS. If you if you can manipulate your weapon system, you can move your body quickly and control heart rate and develop neurological connections to your eyes, hands, all those kinds of things. You've just done that to a higher level than I did. Mainly due to not competing. It's you go on the range and you shoot and you do all this stuff, and I can teach you tons of things about it. But going into the arena and performing it under stress with 4 other guys or ladies next to you, it's a completely different thing. It induces mental things into it that aren't real. And there's the fact that you're just in one heat. You don't know how the other 10, 15 are doing and who's faster and those kinds of things, and you'll learn a lot.
Me and Tim have become great friends, and I have a lot of respect for him. But I think one of the talk about managing expectations. His tagline, or what he would tell people for a long time is, this is as close to combat as you can get. I think that we need to move away from that and more so move towards this is a metric on how to find out what you need to work on. I don't think that we can move forward with the idea of we're going to put you in combat stress, because that's not going to happen. Well, what it can do is provide a metric on how to improve yourself, either physically through marksmanship, mentally. Did you lose your mind when you were, you may be an amazing athlete, you may be an amazing shooter, but did you just lose your mind and you couldn't figure out what was going on as soon as the stress of competition started? And then you can start making parallels to what you're doing as a police officer and what you need to work on to be a better person. Is it going to simulate being in a firefight as a police officer? No, it's not. But it's a platform to where you can find your weaknesses, so that maybe when that day does come, you perform better. Because you've learned how to do things under stress. So I think that's one thing where that expectation has been set, and then some select people will use it as an excuse, as, well, this isn't combat. No, it's not. It's you're showing up to see how your skills stack up against everybody else, and maybe you'll find some truths about yourself that you didn't know was the case. Like maybe you thought you were a really good shooter, but you're not. Maybe you thought you weren't a great shooter, but actually you really are a good shooter. In your physical, the how you stacked up physically wasn't what you thought it was going to be. So I think there's definitely some things there that can be changed and improved with the games as far as that goes.
It's a very interesting concept, because two-way ranges are completely different than one-way. Whether that's stepping out of a squad car as a police officer or stepping out of a up-armored vehicle as a soldier, you can't simulate that. You can't simulate the psychological factors of someone getting hurt around you. I'm working with some people within the military on that, and like psychological stress and how that affects what we call your direct fire engagement process, or detect, identify, decide, engage, and assess threats. Is it a threat? Is it not a threat? How do you engage those things? And sort of getting metrics on where you currently are as a soldier and how you process those things, and then learning how to train you to better be able to do it. And the tactical games definitely gives you physical stress, and then the psychological stuff just comes out of competing with the other people. There's no real psychological stress as far as the targetry goes. C-zone IPSCs at 200 to 300 at the farthest, I think, and paper paper D-zone dipsticks for your pistol stuff or steel, depending. And there's no necessarily anything difficult about that. It just comes to the physical stuff, and then competing against other people, which forces you to rush or exert yourself in a way that you never have before. I mean, I think the bare bones bag is probably most people's big struggle, at least initially, that I can remember in North Carolina when that got introduced. But so moving into the Tactical Game Summit, for anybody that doesn't know what it is, it's an amazing event that pits you against people from across the country, whether they have a law enforcement background, a military background, 3-gun, whatever the case. You show up, you have plate carrier, your belt, mags, and you go out and run your gun against other people, and it's phenomenal. And so you're assuming the leadership or the ownership of the Tactical Games from Tim, who's a phenomenal guy, and as I understand, he's still going to be involved with it. But just due to y'all's personal relationship and his work and the things that he's trying to accomplish, he's going to transition that over to you. How do you feel about that? What are you excited about, and where do you see things going?
I think so. It was probably about 2 or 3 months ago. Tim gave me a call, and he was pretty down about the company, where things were going, stuff like that. And I was like, look, I'll help you out. Let's take a look at this. So that's when initially I started helping him, not from an event management perspective, but from a business owner perspective. These are the things that you need to be doing. These are the numbers you need to be looking at. Creating budgets. When he was kind of down on himself about it, basically what I told him was, look, man, if you grab a guy off the street and you put him in a war zone, they'd be completely screwed, right? Like, they have no tools, no education, they don't know what to do, and things would obviously be dire pretty fast. I said, basically what's happened here is the opposite has happened. You've taken a guy that could be dropped into a war zone and be just fine, and you've dropped them into one of probably the most cutthroat things you can do in your life, which is owning a small business. And so, man, you dropped in here with virtually no education. There was really no ramp up, so that small mistakes could be made and overcome through slow growth. The Tactical Games exploded, and he was having trouble managing it, which anybody would have. He made it, and I've told him this. He made it much further than 99.9% of people ever would have, having no prior experience in the private sector owning a business. I think he learned very quickly, and some of the things I helped out with was there are vultures out there, but the thing is those vultures disguise themselves as somebody that's trying to help them, or somebody that's saying, hey, look, I'll give you 20%. But in the business world, 20% is an arbitrary number. 20% of what? And that's what, he gives people, he's got a huge heart, and he believes everybody is out to do the things that he is out to do, which is be a good person and do what you say you're going to do. So that's where I kind of stepped in and help him realize those things, help him maximize the platform that he had created, And about a month and a half later, we just kind of started talking about growth, where he wants it to be, and what he was willing to do. And that's kind of when we decided, it's like, hey man, if you don't want to do this, I'd be more than happy to take it to the level where you want it to go. So anyway, that's kind of how the discussion happened and how things progressed. Then we decided to go ahead and do it probably about a month and a half ago. And it's been the hardest thing to do for me, like say nationals coming up. Jake's running the event. Jake's programming all the stuff, and what this year, starting with Mississippi, Matt Bergen and Jeremy Moore did the event management in Mississippi. Tim was almost hands off on that entire event. Then going into Burn It, Tim was a little bit more involved with Burn It, but Jeremy Moore and Nathan Drum had a lot to do with everything that was happening there. Then we came to, I forgot where the next one was, but Tim, from the event standpoint, has been relatively hands off this year. He took a huge step back. He brought in people that knew how to manage events from the competitive shooting world, and brought in competitors that were willing to help out to put more variety in the games. I'm sure you noticed that things kind of started. It was like the same stuff, just a different location there for a while. So for almost a year, people have been brought in to run the events, to do stuff. So from the perspective of the competitor going into next year, like, you're probably not going to notice any changes. We're going to continue to work on organization. We've done very well on having events on time, running timely. You're within 15, 20 minutes of when you're supposed to start, you're starting. Things like that. Finding, getting better at scoring, making sure scores are the way they're supposed to be. That's things we're going to continue to expand on in next year. But as far as I feel like not a lot. There's some people out worried about that it's going to turn into something that it's not. It's going to stay the same. What if you have been to Tactical Games in 2020, and you're coming to one in 2021? I would hope that the pre-match communication, knowing where you're supposed to be, stuff like that's going to improve. Logistics are going to improve. Things are going to be running smoother, just as a product of continuing to work to be better after every event. But are you going to show up and it's going to be a completely different experience? No, it's not broke, don't fix it. The event is blowing up because it's awesome. It's fun. Yep. So there's no reason to come in and make any.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you hear different things from people. I can think of one instance in an event, and I think it was like a 50-meter pistol shot, and someone was arguing about that. It was unrealistic. This would never happen. All these things, and I'm thinking to myself, just based off experience, like, you don't know ever what's going to happen. So why not test yourself and see how you perform now versus whenever that situation arises? And I think that's what regardless of whatever the tactical game is supposed to change or do or whatever, the important thing to realize is you can't test yourself as hard as an outside source is going to do for you. I can design and do whatever, but mentally or psychologically, I'm going to design it either to my strengths or to or to an ability level of some kind. But an outside source isn't going to do that. They don't care. A 200-pound sandbag, who would have ever thought of that? But if you really think about it, if I have to pick you up with gear on, you're going to be about 200 pounds and probably incapacitated. So it's similar to that. And it yeah, me too. So it's so what? Like, pick it up, move it. If you can't, okay, go back, train on it, and we're going to come back and do this again.
To touch on the targets, target size, stuff like that. If I was training, if I knew that most of my shots are going to be 7 yards, I'm going to train at 21. If I think that most of my targets are going to be 20 yards, I'm going to train at 100. Because then you've turned your maximum distance into a chip shot, right?
But that's where people are good at, right? Is training to the minimum, and that's a massive concept that I try to get across to people. It's not about the minimum. I don't even want to tell you what the minimum is, because I want you to, oh boom, I did this. Great. Now, what can I do now? You almost open that question up when you don't do that, but you tell someone in any given situation, here's the minimum. They're only going to train to that because cognitively that's where they are.
Right. And that's the other side is, or the other thing is target size and target distance. Competitively, as long as the target is the same size for everybody and the target is the same distance for everybody, the distance and target size is irrelevant. Let's put a C zone at 300 yards and shoot it with a pistol. Well, is everybody's target the same size? Yes. Is everybody's target at the same distance? Yes. Okay, we're all gonna miss. Like some of us, but competitively, the equity is the same. Then the other aspect is, Tim had a limited amount of targets to choose from, and a C zone at 20 yards with a pistol is not a difficult shot. So what do? You can either make the target smaller, which wasn't an option, or you can move it further away, which in turn, if you're talking in measurements of MOA, then you're essentially making the target smaller by putting it further away. So that's what was being done. But
you're also exposing issues within a shooter's process or position or grip, stance, whatever. It's not just about the bullet and the target now. It's about me physically.
That's then, to touch on kind of something like the gear used, stuff like that. Me and Antone are really good friends. You can give Antone a high point, and he's going to show up and whip 99% of people's ass 100% of the time. You could give him an off the shelf $300 AR with iron sights. Give him a week, and he's going to whip your butt with it. Because what he does and what people that consistently do well in any sport is, here's my problem, here's my tools to solve that problem. I want to be the best at this problem solving, and then I'm going to show up and I will be the best. And that's where I think a lot of people, we talked about providing yourself external excuses for things. And I think a lot of people will say, well, Antone has this, and that's why he did that really well. No, I can give my gun, I can trade guns with somebody. The results probably aren't going to change. It's going to be the same. Now, does certain types of things make something easier or more repeatable? Yes, it does. But like I said, you give Antone a 2011, he's going to whip your butt. You give him a high point, he's going to whip your butt. And it's a mentality, not gear choice, that's whipping your butt. His mentality is whipping your butt.
Well, yeah, it's that and the mastery of the process, right? Military, we talk about direct fire engagement process. We talk about shot process. It used to be the fundamentals, but we're trying to get into a more circular process so that you can begin to build these things, because there's other stuff that comes into play in relation to the target, the threat, and different things like that. But if you can, it's a big thing with leaders in the military. So I'm kind of speaking to that environment where I don't have this light. The Army bought this light, and that light sucks because XYZ. Well, no, you just suck at operating it right now. If you put as much time into it as you would this thing over here because it looks cooler or it's brighter or bigger or the buttonology is different, it'll operate just the same and give you the same effects. So I don't care what you give me. I care about being as good as I can with it. So if you're operating better equipment, i.e. whatever trigger set that you put in a gun or whatever the case, you've already maximized the potential of that piece of equipment at that point. So now you're putting it, and that's where I think people make mistakes, where they buy all the Gucci shit, but they don't know how to use it to the best of their ability, and they think it's going to make them better, when in fact it's not. Get as good as you can on the normal stuff, and then as you reach that maximum potential of that piece of equipment in yourself, now I drop the trigger, now I drop, so on and so forth. Or just put more time in on whatever you have. I don't know. But that's where I come at stuff with people like, oh, hey, First Sergeant, we need XYZ. Well, why do we need that? We have this thing over here. Oh, that thing sucks. Well, why? Tell me why. Well, they can't. So get good at what you got. And then when you show up and you perform, like that's what I've seen. The performance equals that next thing. I mean, I don't think. Wait, you're with Vortex, and who all are you with?
Vortex, 2A Armament, and Staccato.
And why did they say, hey, Jared, run my stuff?
Well, one, I was already using all their stuff. Like before, just in competition. So I was already using the stuff before I came on with all of those companies. But the reason why I was using it is because it made my job easier, right? The reason why I use the rifle I use is because it's the tool that I picked for the job. And if I can pick those tools, I'm going to pick what's going to make my life the easiest. The 2011, for the tactical games type shooting, a 2011, there's a reason why bullseye shooters use 2011 pistols or platform pistols. They're easy to shoot. However, most of the reason why people use 2011s in competition is because they are easy to shoot really fast. Now, in tactical games, that's not as high of a priority. So, you could interchange a Glock and a 2011 and have the same amount of success. The Glock is just going to take probably a little bit more dry fire time with manipulating the trigger. And that's where, the difference comes is, it's a 2011 is just easier to shoot. But I was already using those for competition, and I wasn't going to switch to Glock to come to the tactical games and then switch back to another platform when I went back shooting competitively. So that's why I was using the stuff I was using. And I mean, you know this because we've competed against each other, but I know where, I come from 3-gun and stuff, so there's people worried about turning tactical games into a gear race. That I barely use any equipment at all. I go in a t-shirt, shorts. I have a leather belt,
which is always questionable to me.
But
right, a leather belt, and the minimum amount of gear that I absolutely can get away with. If I have 2 mags, I have 2 mag pouches, not 3. I don't wear a hat most of the time, just because I don't need a hat right now, so why am I wearing one? I don't want tactical games to turn into a gear race just like anybody else does. I'm competitive in 3-gun, and I see what it does to people with, they spend 99% of their time focused on gear and 1% of the time actually being proficient with it. So there's, as far as gear, be any changes. We can talk about changes if you want to with the tactical games, but
Yeah, I've got some questions. We'll get into that, but finish your thought there.
But the main thing is, as you were talking about, just being proficient with what you got. Going back, if I would be, the thing that the tactical games has done for me is, me and Anton met each other. We both competed against each other for the first time. I guess my first tactical games was in Mississippi. His first tactical games was in Mississippi. He was competing in intermediate, and I was competing in elite, and we both won. He won intermediate, I won elite. The next time we met, he won. The next time he met, he won, but I was a little closer to him. The next time we met, he won again, but I was a little closer to him. So just as hard as I was pushing to catch up to him at his skill level, he was pushing to stay away from me. And we've both pushed each other to a point. We competed in Crescent against each other, and I finally got him there. And we have pushed each other to a point where, alone or without the tactical games, we never would have been. Antone right now kicks the shit out of Antone a year ago, if that makes sense.
That's the most important thing to me. Live competitor stuff, man. Like, can I kick my ass from yesterday? Like, that's important.
Yeah. So, and I think, a lot of things with we were talking about the bags and the bag weight, stuff like that. There has to be, if you're providing metric, there has to be a metric provided across the board. And I want to see everybody succeed, and I want to see everybody be able to do everything. But the fact is that there's going to be times and situations where you're not going to be able to complete an event. And you can get, like we talked about before, you can get mad about it and say that's too heavy or that's unrealistic. Was it too heavy for the guy that won the event? No, it wasn't. So probably maybe walk over and talk to them a little bit about what they do to train, how they do it, so that you can then go make yourself better. And when you come back next year, you can crush it too. You were talking about the bare bones bag when it was first introduced, and I think it was like 150 pounds. Hardly anybody got it to their shoulder. A couple of months ago, a 150-pound bag was introduced again. Only a couple of people didn't get it to their shoulder. So that's a testament to the progression of things. Now, I've had discussions with different people around it where this isn't CrossFit and never will be CrossFit, and I don't want it to be CrossFit. The CrossFit departed, I believe, from functional fitness. Who needs to do 30 handstand push-ups in a row, and break your neck? No, nobody needs to be doing that stuff. Is there benefits of being able to do those? Absolutely. But is it really functional? I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. But there is a limit when you're talking about tactical fitness for maximum lifts. And that's a discussion with people I'd have. With people like you, people like Zach Rodman, SWAT cops, guys from the military, guys from what is the maximum? Where do we need to go, and how much of a priority needs to be placed on absolute strength as compared to endurance? Because it used to be the cardio games, man. Like, we would show up, it was light weights, you were running everywhere, and I think we went through 3 or 4 competitions where we never picked up anything over 75 pounds. So it's basically sprinting around shooting guns. So there is a ceiling with weights that I feel like we're approaching, and probably in 2022, we will find that maximum where we don't need to be picking up a 300-pound bag. You know, let's have a check with real life. And would you ever do that in a situation? You know, even if you could, you know, what would you pick up a 300-pounder and put them on your shoulder?
Yeah.
That's probably not going to happen. So there's definitely realistic things that we're going to throw in there. The other thing is life doesn't stop at 250 yards. You know, there's definitely targets beyond that distance. So the target distance is probably going to be increased. You know, as more demands on fitness are being put in, more demands on shooting are going to be put in.
What's I want to jump in here real quick because it's an awesome concept there. I mean, we're teaching people out to 600 with 5.56, which will probably blow some people's minds. I mean, I've heard people complain in the games about 200-meter targets, and like in training people outside, even in or outside of the military, that kind of seems like the comfort range. Once you get past that, like people, unless they've done 3-gun or long range, if it's past 600, that's when I start thinking long range. But from 0 to 6, like that should be anyone's wheelhouse inside of a tactical arena. That's my primary weapon system engagement distance. So I should be at that level. And realistically, people will make the excuse. Oh, go ahead.
For 2021, that distance is going to be extended 400 yards. You know, you don't want to make drastic changes. You don't want to say, you know, this year 250 is the max, next year 600 is the max. So it's going to be extended to 400 yards. Does that mean, and all of a sudden, you know, competitors will start saying like, oh my God, 400 yards. Not every target is going to be at 400 yards. You know, most of the targets are going to stay within the same distances that they've been. However, you know, just like a 200-pound bag isn't at every event, a 400-yard shot isn't going to be at every event. You know, I would expect for most competitions 300, maybe 350 to be the max. I feel like 400 is a good distance to push to. 300, you're still not aiming off of the C zone. You know, if you have a 200-yard zero, you're aiming at the head, and you're getting a center mass hit at that point. 400, you have to aim off the target. Wind becomes you have to be thinking about it. I mean, you got to be thinking about it at some points at 200 and 250, but at 400 is when you really have to start paying attention to what the wind's doing. Because you know, when I'm teaching people to shoot, you pull the trigger so that your bullet hits the center of the target. You don't ever want to pull the trigger and say, well, if I aim at the center with the external things happening to the bullet, I'll still hit the target. Well, now you've made the target tiny. You know, you want to be aiming at a point or holding at a point to where your bullet is going to hit the center of the target. And I feel like 400 yards is, if you're not taking things into account when you're pulling the trigger, you can be pulling the trigger perfectly and miss. Inside of 300, you can kind of just shoot. So that's starting getting people engaged into what is my bullet doing beyond 200 yards. I think 400 is a good maximum for now. It'll start the discussion in people's minds that want to be competitive and push their limits, just like we did with the bag weight. So, you know, then the other thing that we're going to introduce, which you'll probably like, is in 2021, we're figuring out the date right now, but we're going to be pulling in and doing the first tactical game sniper challenge. And it's going to be a 2-day event, and we'll probably have an option to do it with a team. So you can do it as an individual or a 2-man team. And the first day will be a long movement where you're stopping off at multiple places and you have problems that you have to solve, targets to shoot, things to find. The second day will be shorter engagements where, the targets are still long distance, but it may be a 8 to 12 minute event. You got to move into a position, find targets, shoot them, kind of not a PRS, but competition, but more, I would say PRS with a lot more physical challenges added in. But I just think, if it's fun, I like shooting long distance, but it's also something that it's important to know. If you can get good at hitting something at 1,000 yards, all of a sudden, like your mindset is 400 yards is nothing. Well, if you can hit it 1,000, 400 yards is nothing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot of people that have shown interest in it. I feel like it'll be fun, and I feel like it's within the tactical games wheelhouse. We should be doing stuff like that. However, with the gear that people show up to the tactical games with, doing an 800-yard shot with a 1x scope, that's not, it can be done 100%. But it's not something that you want to be testing within the same event as the traditional tactical games. So, from that competition, we'll probably take the top 3, and they'll get an invitation to the championship. And instead of doing the top 5, we'll probably do the top 3, and then we're also, which was already announced, doing the team event, which is going to be more of the traditional type of event with a partner.
No, that'll be. I'm looking forward to that as well, because that introduces a whole new dynamic with how you operate. Having done like Best Ranger, for instance, you're working with a teammate. You do train up for however long, and in the competition, there's new psychological factors that come in based off each other's performance that you probably didn't see before, and it causes different challenges within that. And I think that's really cool. And at the same time, I also agree with it because what different flat range training or any kind, a lot of shooting training or events, you're operating by yourself, and on the tactical sense of things, you're never alone. Maybe police officers in different occasions, but 9 times out of 10, and especially probably in today's situations, they're probably teamed up, buddy team at least. And the military side, like, I'm not doing these things by myself. I have 2, 3, up to 12 or more guys with me executing said thing. So in a lot of comps or a lot of training, you train to do all these things by yourself, which improves team ability, but is sort of unrealistic in some senses because I'm never by myself. So that's pretty awesome. The sniper stuff is really cool. And realistically, people look at shooting and like how hard it's math problems essentially. Shooting out, anyone can do it. I promise. We're with the red dot M68 CCO 1 or 2 MOA dot, where we're shooting at 600 and trying to hit a 10-inch lethal zone on a target. We talk about overmatch in the military, where it's being fast, smart, lethal, and precise. So I have to know what I'm doing. I have to know my equipment. I have to know the optic. I have to know the conditions that are around me and be aware of these things. And if I'm not, then you're not intelligent on this kind of stuff. Be fast with it, whether it's manipulation of a weapon system or whatever. 9 times out of 10, that's a lot of people's weak point, is not being able to manipulate a weapon or a mag change or recreating the same situation on the gun every time. And that comes through whether it's dry fire training or just manipulating the weapon system, which is easy to do. You can do it in your garage. And then lethal, like you were talking about, was shooting at, you don't shoot to hit the target. Well, no, because let's say hunting, it's not even hunting people, just animals. I don't just shoot at it to hit the animal. I have to hit it in a specific place to get that meal, or I've caused a disservice to the animal and any environment because I just wounded it. So, and then precision through consistency and accuracy. If I do the same thing every time and build that neurological connection and that repeatable position or whatever the case, in and out of comfortable positions, and be accurate doing it with the weapon system in my body, boom, I have precision. It's fairly easy. Okay, so talking targets and shooting and getting into different positions and things like that, I'm interested in how you train on it. And because to me, when I talk to people, I'm just like, take the weapon and the bullets, go to the range, put yourself in that position and shoot at 50 regular, and then can it either way and see how far the shift is. Like, just play with the math and stretch it out to distance, and you have your answers. What's your take on that, and how do you train for it?
I do a lot of 2-shot drills. I imagine people's perception of people like me and Antone and some others are just like standing on a range with a pile of brass next to us, shooting over and over and over again. I probably shoot. I've shot a couple of times. I shot a 3-gun match a couple of weeks ago. But specifically training for the tactical games, I haven't shot since I competed in Crescent, which was 4 or 5 months ago. It's really about the quality of training. So I will stand back from a barricade, stand back from whatever I'm doing, and step forward into it and take 2 shots. Because there's really nothing to be gained by sitting there and taking 6 shots from the same position. There's, and I say that with a caveat that you've already been able. People build up tension as they get deeper into shot strings and will start missing. A lot of people will start missing after 6 or 7 shots. Usually that's the magic. 6 or 7 is, depending on how much tension they're building, is in an average shooter is usually when they start missing.
And just how the eye works too.
Right. And so I'll shoot 1 or 2 shots from a position, then stand back and analyze the position, try and find better ways to shoot from that position, better ways to get into that position efficiently. And what I can, and I'll step back and I'll test different ways to do it. I don't do it the same way twice until I find the best position to shoot from. And other than that, it's just sight picture and trigger control. If you can see it and you can pull the trigger and you know what the bullet is doing between you and the target, that's all you need to know. And that's all you need to know how to do. Shooting from super unconventional positions, laid out on the ground, sideways, whatever. If you can see the target and you can pull the trigger, you can hit it. I think a lot of people get really concerned about the gun being mounted properly to their shoulder, the gun, having a certain kind of sight picture. I mean, you don't have to have the gun shouldered to hit the target. You just have to be able to see through your optic and see the target and be able to pull the trigger. So that's usually when I'm teaching people. I start when they started advancing a little bit. I'll get them uncomfortable by saying, all right, now we're going to lay the gun out on the ground. You're not really going to touch the ground except for touch the gun except for holding the pistol grip. And we're going to get used to moving this gun around our body and still hitting the target from different positions. And then as soon as you can break that mindset of it must be mounted on my shoulder in this position, I must be with my nose touching the charging handle and this, all these requirements that have to be met before I can pull the trigger. As soon as you break that habit, you can see a change in the way they shoot. So that's what I focus on when I'm shooting is, if I can shoot and hit a target at 100 yards laying sideways left-handed, I can surely do it from a comfortable position.
I'm going to move into some questions that some tactical athletes had. So we talked about equipment changes, which doesn't really sound like there's any.
So the elite is going to stay the same.
Okay.
All the equipment is going to stay the same. There's some minor things changing within the rifle, but it's not really changing. It's just clarifying some stuff. As you know from competing, the rules are, as written, are a little hazy. They leave some things. So we're gonna really just clean up the rules a little bit, where it's a little bit easier to understand. Then the women's division is going to stay the same. Masters is going to stay the same. Intermediate, if you've ever competed, intermediate is the biggest division. There's usually 70 or 80 competitors within that one division. Red dots on pistols have always been a huge, there's a lot of people in the run and gun community, a lot of guys from law enforcement. It's like, hey, I use a red dot on my pistol and I got to take it off to compete. So what we're going to do with that is red dots are going to be allowed on pistols in a second intermediate division. It's not going to be, it's not going to be allowed in elite. It's not going to be allowed in masters. It's not going to be allowed in the women's elite division or the women's intermediate division, which that's also another change. There'll be 2 divisions for women coming up. But there will be an intermediate division that allows red dots on pistols. I don't ever foresee that bleeding into any other division. Unless, I'm not going to say ever. In 5 years, I did a poll on the athlete group in Facebook, and it was like 120 people said, no, we want to keep using irons. There was 20 people that said, I wanted a red dot. If I ask that question again in 5 years and 120 people say, why can't we use red dots on pistols, and 10 people want to continue using irons, we're going to change it. It's not concrete, but it's going to be based off the desires of the competitors, not based off my desire as an owner. It's just, I'm going to do what the people want. If they want red dots on their, in 3, 4, 10 years, if they want red dots on their pistol, and it's an overwhelming majority, I'm not gonna force people to come back and use irons in the tactical games. However, just to be more inviting to more people, and if you want to show up and you want to use a red dot on a pistol, you can't play in elite and you cannot play in the masters division, but you can go and you can play in the intermediate division in that specific division within intermediate. As far as gear goes, that's it. So we're creating a new division. It's going to be the intermediate red dot division, and you can put a red dot on your pistol.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger things. People, I have yet to hear a legitimate reason why Tactical Games refuses to allow optics on pistols. I've heard it was because they wanted to prevent a gear race, but $2,500 STI pistols are allowed. So many things that are currently unrestricted in Tactical Games that could actually argue as giving shooters an advantage, such as mag wells, trigger weight, gun weight, suppressors, etc. But Tactical Games decided pistol optics was unfair? ? I believe Tactical Games leadership should be listening to its competitors and take this as an opportunity to grow the sport by possibly creating new divisions, intermediate optics and elite optics, instead of always poking fun at the idea. I understand it's not 3-gun or USPSA, but it wouldn't hurt to take a page out of their book and look at how those established organizations control their divisions. Thank you for your time, and I wish you the best of luck as the new leader of the Tactical Games. It's one of the...
When it comes to... So I own a gun range. Me and 2 of my friends bought a gun range about a year ago. And I've been competing in USPSA and 3-gun for 6 or 7 years. We host a 3-gun match, we host a USPSA match, and we host an IDPA match. So it's mildly frustrating when people come to me with, well, they do this and this. Well, I know what they do in those because we're running those matches. I know what they're doing. And when it says come to, what the competitors are wanting, I started the poll in the competitors Facebook group. There's 800 to 1,000 people in that group. It was, of the people that voted, it was 13 to 1, 12 to 1 to keep iron sights. There was only a few people that wanted red dot sights added pistols. So until that changes, the rule won't change. As far as going into 3-gun, and specifically 3-gun, 3-gun, in my opinion, was bastardized with 5 different divisions in the same match, and essentially 5 different elite divisions. When the 3-gun match is over, there's a limited winner, there is a TAC Ops winner, there's an open winner, there's a 2x4 winner, there's a PCC winner. All these people have left as winners, right? In the tactical games, there's one person, one male and one female that leave as the winner of that event. And that's the way it's always going to be. If you're in the Masters division, you won the Masters division. If you're an elite, you won the elite division. If you're an intermediate, now there's the iron sight and the red dot, you won those divisions. But the winner of that event was either the female that won the women's elite or the male that won the men's elite. And why is that? There's no rule saying that if you're over 45, you cannot enter the elite division. Kirk Homer, I think he's 47 or 49. He almost beat Anton and you. You're making a choice not to compete in elite. Now, I'm 35, and I see the 27-year-olds finishing an event, and like 5 minutes later, they're fine. And I'm trying to find Advil and ice,
Yeah.
Like I get the age thing. I 100% get the age thing. But, when I was putting those polls out to get to literally polling the competitors, I was just as shocked as probably most people are to find out that 90%, if not a little bit over 90%, they don't want to see red dots on pistols. And until that changes, that's the way it's going to be.
I think this is just an opinion that or a thought process that I have, where the elite division is already so competitive, and I think it probably freaks people out that it's going to be one more thing that someone is better at them at. It could be a money thing, like, I don't want to spend money on a red dot or whatever the case, but I know a lot, whether military or police, a lot of agencies and the military are moving towards red dots on the guns. Talking to Department of Homeland Security, ICE guys, and because they train on Fort Penny, we cross-pollinate ideas and training and different things like that. And they've actually seen better results with people that start out on a red dot and then move into irons, which is kind of weird to me. But that, based off of what they ran through their training, it worked out that way. I've found
dry firing with a pistol dot is the most effective way to learn how to shoot iron sights. That's you can see everything that you're doing when you're manipulating the trigger. You can see in the dot movement.
Yeah.
And trust me, I shoot open in 3-gun. I have pistols with dots on them. Like, I love shooting with dots. But to the question, until a majority of the competitors want the change in that division, it's not happening. And then as far as an elite optics division, there will ever only be one elite division. And whatever that division's rules are is what it's going to be for the elite. There's not going to be elite optics, elite irons, elite 1X on the rifle, elite LP, because then you have 5 different people at the event saying that they've won. Within 3-gun, what that does is it provides an opportunity for places to hide, for people to hide. If you show up to an event and you want to win, and Antone has shown up and he's shooting a red dot on his pistol, all you have to do is pull out your pistol with iron sights, and now you don't have to compete against Antone. So that's something that I don't want transferring into the tactical games and the elite divisions, is the opportunity to hide from the best guys.
Right.
If you're showing up for elite, you're going to compete against the best.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And at the same time, I look at it as a challenge to be better. I'll run a red dot on my stuff. I'm not going to put a magnifier behind it. One, I'm not going to buy one, and 2, I don't feel like I need to, but I want to be as good as the guy that has it. So it's just a challenge that you got to make for yourself. And I'd love the point that you either win elite or you don't. You either win intermediate or you don't. And then the masters or female divisions, and then allowing people to shoot intermediate with the red dot's cool. I think it's kind of helping everybody out. Like, you can if you want to, but if you want to compete at the elite level, you can't use it. So so you covered division changes with addition of another female division, which I imagine is going to be like an elite and intermediate female division.
Yeah, so through talking, also another thing that we did about a month ago was develop an athlete advisory board, which the guys voted on within that Facebook group. There's 7 or 8 competitors that are on there, and the females were expressing that, hey, you got girls out there like Blair Drum. She can go and she can compete with any male elite physically. But we're saying, like, hey, we're going to cap the bag weight at 80 pounds. And she's like, well, her and Calorina are like, this is nothing, whereas an 80-pound bag to some females may be almost impossible.
No.
So a big driver for me, I've got a daughter. I want her to be able to have the same opportunities that any guy has. And it's always been important to me, and I stress that with Sarah when we're setting up the prize table and stuff, is like, hey, the best 2 prizes, it's going to go to the men's elite winner and then the female winner. And those 2 prizes need to be the same. Like, I don't care if there's 4 or 5 females that showed up. Those 2 people won those 2 divisions. And, it's all going to be the same.
Well, what about crossing over? What about the females competing just in the elite division period?
There's no gender requirement for elite.
Interesting. Okay.
If you want to go play in the men's elite, you can be a female, you can be male. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And that goes as well as the intermediate groups. If women want to go into the intermediate groups, they have. And that's been an argument keeping there from being more female divisions is, well, you can go to intermediate. But the thing is that for them, like, let's say Carla, who's won a lot, if she goes to the intermediate division and competes against the guys, well, if she wins the intermediate division, the prize isn't as big as winning the women's division. If she gets 5th in the intermediate division against the guys, she could have gotten 1st in the women's division. So there's really no driver for them to want to do that. There's also a situation back, like, quite a ways back in 3-gun where a female was competing against the males, and there was a lot of blowback that would prevent somebody that knows those stories from wanting to be able to, from wanting to do that and basically recreate history again. So as far as division changes, we're adding a female intermediate group, which will be about 60 to 70% of the female elite weights. So it's basically an entry level way for women to come in and not be intimidated by the weight or the shooting difficulty. Then we're also creating the women's elite, which will allow us to make the women's division harder, because in the past we have had to, you don't want to crush people that show up. You want it to be challenging, and not everybody has to finish every event, but like 75 to 80% of the competitors need to be finishing every event. If you create an event that nobody's finishing, like it's everybody time capped, that's too hard. However, if there's 30 competitors and 3 don't finish an event, that's probably pretty good. You know, you tested people. Even if it's 5 people, that's fine. So now we can increase the difficulty. Both the female elite shooting standards and shooting difficulty are going to be the same as the men's elite, and then the weights are not going to be the same as the men's elite, but we're going to be able to increase the weights and the difficulty of things through having 2 events. Then the other changes to divisions is the master's age is being lowered to 40 from 45. We haven't quite come up with the name of the next group yet. It's going to be a 50 plus. So as the elite standards continue to get harder, it just makes sense to lower the age of the first tier of the master's groups to 40 years old. And then there's also going to be another master's division that's 50. So you'll have the men's elite, which is open to all ages. Then you'll have the master's group that's 40 to 50, and then the 50 plus.
It sounds like there's some really good changes coming in. Can't make everybody happy, and everybody's got a good idea, and they're never wrong. So I look at it as someone created a competition, and I'm going to test myself regardless of what the parameters are. And I think a lot of people could be better served in that mindset, because it's theirs on the competitor level, but it's not theirs on the design and execution level, I guess. And you have to be able to separate that, I believe, as a competitor. Like, if you want to help design it, reach out to the creators and show why and how you should be a part of that team and earn that ability, or be a competitor and give feedback based off events, but don't create problems out of thin air because you didn't perform as well as you thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple, you know, when I'm still competing, but my talks with Tim were always, I'm doing this to find a challenge. Like, I want you to break me. Like, I want you to find my maximum. You know, I want that to happen. And that was always my argument with him with lighter weights and sprints and stuff like that, is like, hey, you know, this is cool. But like, I want you to find my max. I want you to find, you know, where I have to stop, where I can't continue.
Well, and that was always the funny thing with you. People, you know, when it was fast, people were like, oh, Jared's a cardio machine. He's I forget what the title was, but it was like Cardio King or something along those lines. Yeah. And then it turned into, you know, stuff got stronger, and like, oh, Jared's, you know, then it shifted to the strength focus, and like, oh, they're just pitching to Jared's strength. Well, in reality, it's, you're a well-rounded individual in shooting strength and cardio side, and it's something to strive to if you're not there. There's some phenomenal guys out there, and I mean, I've shown up, competed, and made mistakes that dropped me out of where I probably could have been if I hadn't made those mistakes, and it had absolutely nothing to do with equipment or physical ability or anything. It's completely mental in a decision, or, well, there was North Carolina with the bare bones bag. I was completely depleted nutrition wise. I didn't prepare myself for that. I walked in like, fuck it, whatever. This is gonna be awesome, and that's not the way to approach it, especially in the elite level. Like, you have to train like an elite athlete. You can't train and prep, coming off the couch, because you guys are going to humble those individuals. And I mean, I know I was humbled from the first event and have been humbled multiple times in and around there, and it's developed me as a human being. And I appreciate everything that the tactical games does. In the shooting sports world, it's different. It isn't 3-gun. It's not USPSA. I'm excited to see like the target stuff and longer distances, and does it play to any strength? I have no idea, because I'm not competing and I haven't seen the results from that competition. And that's the only way to find out. Show up and do it. So I know, just real quick, I mean, get on the thetacticalgames.com for the schedule. Additionally, Tactical Games University, last question I'll ask you on that, or last question I'll ask you, you guys, is that still running? Are you and Anton still heading that up? You have other instructors coming in, or how's that working?
So basically, I get a lot of questions about how to be an instructor for the tactical games. There is a written out thing that we have, so you can win 3 times. You can finish in the top. I think finish in the top 5 times, and then we do have a provision in there for adaptive athletes. Like, I don't know if you know James Gill, but amazing shooter, came from the Marines, has trained more people to do more things than anybody else combined. I'm never going to tell him, no, you have to go win elite, or you have to finish in the top 5 times, because dude's out there with one leg and one eye, and he won the intermediate division. I think he won, or he may have gotten 3rd. I can't remember. He got a trophy. He finished really high.
Wow.
But to tell him, hey, you have to go win elite, or you have to finish in the top 5 X amount of times first, that would be stupid. So we're not going to do that. But you're gonna get there through performance, and I think the schedule is coming out quick. Anton is taking over. When you're running a company, you have to delegate responsibility, and so far I've taught the Tactical Games University classes. We have another one in December at Tradecraft, and Anton has already given us one date that he can do next year, but Anton's taking over classes. We're also going to have, there's going to be 2 avenues to the tactical games, which I've already talked to Chris Alvarez about the others, and I would talk to people like you, where we're going to have the game side of the Tactical Games University, and then the tactical side of the university, because there is a distinct difference. We touched on it before. I can teach you how to be really good at a game. Chris Alvarez can teach you how to not get shot in a firefight, right? So there's 2 people with a vast amount of knowledge that can teach you 2 different things, and we're not going to confuse. The other thing that we do with the Tactical Games University is let you know when we're making a departure from sound tactical decisions. Like, hey, this is what you do in a game to be faster. You would never want to do this if you're getting shot at. Because those things need to be made clear. And it's just like making a little bit of the departure as we're trying to get you as close to combat as possible. It's like, no, let's provide a metric so that you can go back and make yourself a better tactical athlete. Make yourself, get yourself in better shape, become a better marksman, stuff like that. We're not providing a combat experience. But going back to your question, I think that we're going to have 4 or 5 tactical games universities next year. Anton's a cop in California, so his vacation and schedule kind of dictate when we can have them. But I think that they're going to be releasing those dates here pretty quick.
Awesome. So, I mean, you guys need information on all that stuff, and that's pretty awesome. Like, making the break between tactical and the games side, that's pretty amazing. In my experience, where I teach mainly on the tactical side and have tried to glean information from the competitive side of things, because there is a distinct difference to me. A lot of people will argue it. I think there is differences, and you have to, in my opinion, know both and be good at both to have the best product. Like, it's not going to make you any worse, but don't stand on any one idea or thing and be like, this is the only way to do it, because it's shooting. Like, I always say, everyone knows what they're doing and no one's wrong. It's kind of true, because if I pull the trigger and it hits it where it was, I've seen guys both feet together turn around sideways over their shoulder and, shoot and hit the target. Well, they obviously know what they're doing. There's something they did right there. I can't say that that's retarded. It's retarded, it's not intelligent in this situation. But it worked. So, okay, we'll take that for a grain of salt.
My argument always is his first shot on target wins.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how you did it.
Yeah, I can shoot really fast and really accurate. And there's really, I don't see a downside to that. Now, some of the methods that I used to do some of those things, you would never want to do if somebody is shooting back at you. But I've always felt that both ways, competition shooters will hide from the tactical methodologies just because they don't want to learn it. And then guys coming from a tactical background, the dudes in competition shoot. It's another world. I mean, you've got I forgot what his name is.
Tyler Nelson.
The guy that you were. He was there the day that I came to be with y'all for that day.
Yeah, Tyler Nelson.
Yeah, guy's unreal, right? He's super fast shooter, super fast, super accurate. A lot of people don't know that kind of speed and accuracy exists until they see it for the first time. And then that's very humbling. And then, like we were talking about before, then you have a choice. You can either say, well, that's dumb because that's not tactical. Or you can say, wow, that guy can shoot really fast and really accurate. I need that information from him so I can apply it in a way that makes sense in whatever I'm using. You know what I mean? So if I'm a cop, well, I can go learn how to be really, really fast and accurate at shooting, and I can put the tactical spin on it that I need, for what makes sense to what I'm doing.
Absolutely, and you have to be open and know that you don't have all the answers, and there's multiple ways to do everything. So for upcoming, if you're interested in the tactical games, tacticalgames.com, there's information on the university there, and I'm sure you guys are going to be updating it as changes come out and everything. I mean, it was phenomenal to talk to you and get your background and how everything goes. I didn't get to everything I wanted to, but I mean, we'll talk to you again, and because these things are amazing, and that's what this podcast is going to be about for anybody that is out there. I know it went a little bit long, but we want to talk about how to train, fight, and win in life. Life's a series of getting knocked down. It's about how you get back up and how you keep going at it. You're going to make excuses for yourself, or you're going to take ownership. You're going to get out there and win that fight within, because that's where most of us struggle. And we make the excuses, and we deny, and we lie to ourselves or to other people, or we learn something and stick within that and can't move past something. It's a challenge. It's about how you surround yourself with. We touched on that, and I appreciate your insights, Jared, and throughout your life. And there's other stuff we're going to get to at another time, because just from talking to you, I know you've got some other experiences in life that can help some other people out. But I appreciate you taking your time. I appreciate the listeners for coming in, giving this a chance. Join us back here next time. I'm going to try and vary it and keep multiple different people coming in from all walks of life to talk about this stuff, because it's important to me. Too many people are ending their lives, whether it's military, it's veterans, or it's civilians with COVID and what other struggles are that they're having. Everybody's fighting something every day, and you need to train to compete at life as an individual and with other people, and that's what this is about for me. And I hope you get a message out of whoever we talk to. I hope you got something from Jared. If you're interested, look him up on Instagram at Halbert JRod and see what all he's doing and what he's got going on. He works every day to be better and taking over the tactical games, and I'm excited to see where it goes and to get out there and compete with you guys again. You're still competing, right?
It's going to be a dicey situation.
Okay.
If I'm definitely, me and Anton are doing the partner challenge or the partner event together. However, if I do compete, I'll probably delete my scores before they're made final. There may be situations where I compete. I think the only time I'll ever come back to compete, I'll probably compete once a year just to qualify for the nationals. But there's always going to be that belief that, well, he owns the tactical games. People made decisions in his benefit. He knew what the programming was. Whatever it may be.
At the end of the day, you can know, and I've had this argument, whether it's Best Ranger Comp or International Sniper Comp or whatever competitions like militarily that I've been involved with, you can know everything about anything. You still have to show up and beat everybody else. It does not matter. There's always somebody better than you, and I think that's a BS thing. But I understand, the political correctness of it and all that kind of stuff. But I'd compete against you regardless. I don't care. It's
That's
fun.
kind of what I've heard from most of the top guys is they want me to keep competing. They want to beat me. I understand that, and I don't want to. I'm never going to be the guy that runs from. There's guys coming up. Tim Szymanski, amazing athlete. He's putting a lot of effort into shooting. What would I be doing to him if I never gave him a chance?
Yeah.
Like if I retired and never competed again, I'd be doing him a disservice.
You don't want to be the Rich Froning of the tactical games, right?
No, to me, and I think Rich Froning's done a lot of amazing things. But hiding from Fraser is probably not one of the most amazing things that he's done. So if Tim racks up some wins and he thinks it's BS that he can't compete against me, I'll definitely show up.
There you go. Man, I'm pumped for this next year and where you take it. And I appreciate the competition. I appreciate the conversation. Make sure you guys are getting out there, train, fight, win. Follow Jared. Follow me if you want information. Give me feedback in the direct messages, please, on this and what you want to hear and see. Because this is for you guys. I have lived experience, and I'm going to continue to experience life daily. So whatever the question is, ask it. I'm going to try and figure out how to work it in and work it into the conversations that I have with amazing individuals from around the world, really, as they come to me. So again, thanks to A-TACS. Thanks to all the other sponsors that have made this possible for me. Thank you, Jared, for getting up early this morning, having this long-ass conversation. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem, man. Anytime.
All right, brother. We'll see you.